So you join me this afternoon on this wonderful February winter afternoon, which feels a lot more like spring, and we're taking the 2 litre Vitesse, which is known to us, on a little drive around a lesser known part of the Suffolk Heritage Coast, which will bring us through the village of Alderton and Hollesley and then on into Butley. But the village we're coming into right now is a very pretty village called Shottisham, and we'll start just by driving into the village centre, and we'll turn around by the Sorrel Horse pub and then pick up our journey along this coastal road here. It's a great driving road, generally speaking, and this may prove my point, but most of the traffic you're likely to come across here will be either local or agricultural traffic, and the roads are narrow but they're nicely twisty, so plenty of smart rev matching down changes, a lot of beautiful scenery, and even in the height of the summer it's not a place that the tourists really know that well. So it's not like Orford or Woodbridge or Warbleswick or Southwold, and I think it's certainly somewhere worth bringing your old car to. So we're coming into the village of Shottisham now, and ahead of us you see this lovely pub called the Sorrel Horse. And what we'll do is we'll just sort of turn around here. Lovely spot for a cup of coffee or lunch. See, we've got quite a lot of low winter sun, but come into the straight, just engage overdrive. There she goes. And the revs drop by about 500 RPM. And with this Vitesse, we're running on the old Triumph Herald swing axle at the back, which means that the rear wheels tend to have positive camber, and this does mean you have to sort of rethink how you corner in these cars, and like now it pays to sort of brake in a straight line if you're going to brake or simply reduce your speed. Downshift first, then come in slowly, ease into the corner, and then power on the exit. Nicely through. Where you tend to get into trouble is if you lift drift off halfway through the corner on a wet surface. If you make that mistake, then the back end will then sort of come round and catch you out. But the old adage of slowing fast out seems to work really well with these earlier Vitesses. A little bit, we're at 60 now. Nice clear roads, and we're now coming into the village of Alderton. Just drop out of overdrive, back into fourth. We'll double declutch for this bend. And Alderton's one of these rare villages now in East Suffolk which still has a village shop and an active pub. So we're taking the Hollesley road out of the village, and on our right, at one time these houses were the married quarters for RAF Bawdsey, and were used by RAF servicemen and their families right up until the early 1990s, when the RAF base at Bawdsey closed. But to our right, you can't really see it because it's a sort of misty afternoon, but we've got the North Sea and Hollesley Bay, and on a clear day it's a spectacular sight, you know, particularly at this time of day when the sun's on the sea. You can imagine you were somewhere else, somewhere more tropical, certainly. You'll notice there's a lot of sand banked up on either side of the road, and this peninsula that we're on, the Bawdsey Peninsula, is known as the Suffolk Sandlings, and generally known for its poorer, lighter soil, which is particularly good for growing vegetables. Down to our right, there's a place which is worth visiting called Shingle Street, and there's a nature reserve there. It's a very wild part of the coast, and I think what we'll do is we'll take a little detour. I'll take you down there so you can take a look at Shingle Street. But effectively, this again is a very wild part of the Suffolk Heritage Coast, and it's a great place for cycling, walking, and really popular with naturalists, because there's a lot of wildlife here. So we're coming into the village of Hollesley. Hollesley, I should say, is also famous for its prison, and what we'll do is we'll drive through part of the prison on our way out. But the prison is on the site of what was the Hollesley Bay Colony, which was a sort of training centre in the early part of the 20th century for people being sent off to different parts of the British Empire to work, and a little bit like a sort of an agricultural college. It was a place where people were taught skills that they would need in other parts of the world, and later developed into the prison. Just coming past village primary school. We've timed this just around school pickup time, so just be a little bit careful here. Very narrow lane through this part of the village, and we're actually coming past the old schoolhouse. Because of the prison, there are obviously a lot of prison staff who live in the village, and so it's actually a very thriving community with young families, and because of that it still has a pub and shop and garage, so there's enough of a community to sustain it. So what we're actually doing is we're skirting round the edge of Hollesley and making our way down to one of the Martello towers. Just turn right here. It's beautifully clear where we are, but because of the cold temperatures outside, there's this sort of mist that's coming in off the North Sea, and it adds a sense of mystery to Shingle Street. Some people find this part of the coast a little bit haunting. I love it all the more for that. As you probably saw from the sign, this is very much a dead end for us. We'll get to the Martello Tower and then be able to turn round. The village has got a few houses. The core is the former Coast Guard cottages. And again, these were sort of an important part of maritime safety in the 19th century, and of course also very much a part of catching out smuggling, and probably an early defence warning system as well. So we're driving through these marshes here, again a wonderful haven for wildfowl. And you can't really see it, but ahead of us is the sea. You'll have to take my word for that. Great reed beds. I feel a little bit like driving into a Sherlock Holmes film set. these narrow roads are just perfect for old cars. You know, when you get a gap, you can just scoot through. Watching vehicles like the one in front of us pass, you know, another modern car is always interesting, because it generally means someone's got to pull over or back up, but we usually just slide through gaps. So we're coming up now, and the Coast Guard cottages are sort of ahead of us and off to the left, but we're going to just slip round the back. I'm sorry, I'm guessing the sun's right in the camera lens at the moment. So more atmosphere than actually things to look at, perhaps. I could do with cleaning the windshield, really. I should have done that before we set off, but oh well. Now, ahead of us is one of the Martello towers. This has been converted into a private house, as quite a few of them have been here. And what we'll do is we'll just come up and turn around here. What I'll try to do is to sort of find some photos that I can add into this video at some point, to give you a better idea of what Shingle Street looks like in sunshine. We're going to go back the way we came, and I'll zip you through the prison. I should say zip you through the prison estate rather than the prison itself. I'm hopeful we won't actually end up in the prison. That really would be an unplanned visit. Oh, that's kind. In some ways, this bit of landscape reminds me a little bit of the Cambridgeshire Fens, and maybe even the Kent marshes. But what it shows is that the eastern part of Suffolk is an area of topographical contrasts. You go from woodland to heathland to these wonderful wetland habitats, all in the space of 5 miles, really. This car, the 1967 2 litre, which is sometimes referred to as the Mark 1, although of course the Mark 1 could also incorporate the original Vitesse 6, the 1600. It feels much lighter to drive than Bess, my 71 Mark 2. And one of the reasons for that is that a previous owner of my Mark II put in a huge amount of sound deadening in the body panels, particularly under the bonnet, and that together with the revised rear suspension seems to have added a huge amount of weight to the car, and this one feels sort of lighter and more responsive. The engine is certainly more responsive here because it has a lightened and balanced crankshaft and flywheel, so it revs much more eagerly. Also lower geared at the differential, so it's a faster accelerating car, whereas the other one is much more of a sort of long distance cruiser, and that one seems to enjoy motorways more. But the fact you've got overdrive on both cars sort of evens it out really. But in terms of this sort of driving point to point, I prefer this one. So this is Hollesley Bay, and we're coming through the prison estate now. I'm obviously making sure that I don't actually film people as we come through. But, it's not what most people think of when they think about a prison, I think. But certainly it wasn't when I first came here. Now, if you're interested in horses, just across the way from us here is the Suffolk Punch Trust, and this is a trust which is entirely devoted to preserving the Suffolk Punch heavy horse breed, which a few years ago was in real danger of dying out. And the Suffolk Punches are sort of, they serve the same function as Shire horses in a way, but these were very much bred to deal with the heavy clay lands in Suffolk, and were used primarily for ploughing. And they have very sort of wide bodies, very powerful shoulders and hind quarters, but they tend to have short legs, strong necks, and they have this wonderful red or sorrel colour. And the pub we saw at Shottisham, called the Sorrel Horse, takes its name from the Suffolk Punch breed. But the trust is worth having a look at. You can go there, get coffee, something to eat. Wonderful chance to sort of see the horses in person. And there are a number of bygone farm exhibits, including a fantastic collection of carts and horse-drawn vehicles as well, which I believe many of which were either donated or lent to the trust by the Rackham family, who are a family of West Suffolk farmers. Anyway, we're now leaving Hollesley and headed to the next village, which is Boyton, and this is a really nice little road to drive on. Undulates, it twists, again Tends not to have a lot of traffic on it, but you do have to be wary of coming around the corner and meeting a tractor or a lorry coming the other way. Again, the sea is off to our right, but there's quite a lot of woodland over to our left, and something probably to watch out for in the evening, certainly at dusk or at dawn, a deer. And yeah, those deer are the sort of things that you don't want to meet on a road. Very pretty farmhouse up ahead here, just dropped out of overdrive. And then we're about to go over this little bridge where there's a lovely little stream which runs through the garden, the cottage just off to our left. Now in a village called Capel St Andrew, which is really a little hamlet. Some pretty little cottages here, but this road will take us on to Butley, and we'll go past Butley Priory. But it's a nice alternative route from Woodbridge that you can take if you want to get to Orford or to Snape and Aldborough. So across to our right, we're looking towards Butley Creek, and that feeds into the River Ord or estuary, and I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos, it's a place where they harvest oysters. So ahead of us we have Butley Priory. I read somewhere that in the 19th century people from London would take the train as far as Aldborough, and there was a firm that ran carriage tours out here on Sunday afternoons to take visitors to have a look at the ruins of the old priory. For people that know Aldborough and its more recent history, there used to be a wonderful garage and petrol station right in the high street which belonged to the Ward family, and up until 20 years ago they used to deliver the petrol across the pavement there was an arm that used to swing out from the petrol pump, so the cars would pull up on the pavement and pedestrians would walk underneath the arm of the petrol pump while people were filling up. But the Ward family began by running a sort of horse-drawn taxi service from the railway station to the hotel, the Suffolk Hotel in Aldborough, and then did little day excursions out to places like Butley Priory. We're now coming down Oyster Hill, named so after the pub, which is a pub and microbrewery, which was very popular in its day with the American Air Force personnel, because it's sort of handily located between RAF Woodbridge and Bentwaters. And we're going to come through. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this trip out, and look forward to seeing you again on our next road trip.